welcome to the D3D4 Football Podcast with me, your host, James Richards. Right, hello, welcome back. Thank you for tuning in to another D3D4 Football Podcast. Last week, we did it, we cracked it, we recorded the best podcast the world will ever listen to. We actually predicted exactly where every team in League 1-2 will finish, and we got it spot on. You'll have to take our word for it, though, because there was a technical issue with the recording, and we weren't able to put it out. But what a shame, eh? We're all here this week. I'm joined by my three co-hosts, Ed Walker. How you doing, Ed?
Yeah, I'm good. I think my favourite part of the pod last week was the part where Chris discovered the meaning of life. He worked it out.
He did, yeah. On a napkin, no less.
Unfortunately, that's not available for anyone to hear.
Yeah, I accidentally used the napkin. I had a chili that same night and wiped my face, and it's gone.
Oh, what a shame! What a shame!
It's really
oh no,
confined to the annals of history. And David Jenkin, of course, joins us as well. How are you doing, David?
Yeah, pretty good, thank you, mate. Just getting over a cold, so rather happy in a way that the podcast didn't record properly last week, because yeah, it wasn't good for my voice, but. Yeah, I'm glad that we've got it back this week.
Indeed. And we have tested sound. So hopefully this will all work. A big shout out to Mark Riggin, our latest patron. We did give him a shout out last week, but unfortunately it didn't record. But Mark, we're very much appreciating your support. You can support us as well for as little as $1 or £1. You can choose your currency now, I believe, on Patreon per month, which is a bargain to basically have a League 1 and 2 podcast coming to your ears week in, week out. We thoroughly appreciate your support, and we thoroughly enjoy doing it, so that's great. And also, we are partnered this season with The Big Step, who are tackling gambling's advertising obsession in football. And a big advocate of being against gambling, I suppose, is Paul Merson. Has anyone actually read his book yet, or seen any of the stuff about it?
I haven't. He's got a series out, hasn't he?
I've seen some of the articles about the series. I think it's quite powerful stuff.
Oh, it's a real eye opener, and if you are struggling with a gambling addiction, if you are one of those people, you'll just know you're not alone. There is help out there. A lot of people have gone through and are going through what you're trying to deal with. And don't be afraid to reach out. Just DM us, get in touch with us. We can put you in touch with people who will be able to help you, people who've had the same experiences as you. It's never good to think you're on your own in these things, and you never are. Gambling addiction is a very serious problem, but it can be beaten, and there are people out there who can support you, so reach out. Absolutely. Right, this week it's FA Cup, which means we are going to take your questions rather than... I do like the FA Cup's the best competition on earth, but I just feel going through every single tie of the round.
There's a lot.
And there's some that are still playing. Oxford played Bristol Rovers today. One of our questions is quite relevant to Joe Barton, actually. It's given me nightmares, in fact, frankly. And of course, then Salford play on Monday. So we're going to take your questions, and we're going to start with one from Ian Bradley, which I think is quite nice. It's if I can find it on our Twitter feed, it was, I think, what is your earliest FA Cup memory? Yes, earliest FA Cup memory. His was the Chelsea Leeds warfare, I call it, in the 70s. Those two really had some pretty dirty games. You can watch them on YouTube. But yeah, earliest FA Cup memory. I'm going to go to you, Ed, for this one to start us off.
I have a feeling mine might be the most recent out of a lot of us, because I probably haven't been to football as much as you lot have. The first one I can vividly remember that I was at was an FA Cup third round tie between Burton and Middlesbrough at the Pirelli back in 2011. Middlesbrough, I think, had just come down to the Premier League. They had Tony Mowbray as manager at the time. They went 1-0 up, and Burton turned it around with a couple of Sean Harrod goals right at the end of the game to win 2-1. It's the first time Burton Albion won an FA Cup third round tie. It's the only time they've won an FA Cup third round tie since. And it was the point to me where I really remember thinking, yes, this is the club I want to support going forwards. It really made me fall in love with the team. So I have great memories of the FA Cup for sure.
Oh, absolutely. And it shows my age when you said that Middlesbrough had just come down from the Premier League. I was going, oh, yes, I remember that. They had Emerson and Gascoigne.
No.
Not that
time. A bit more recent than that.
Yeah, exactly. Dear, oh dear. What about you, David?
The thing is I'm a little bit like Ed, but I haven't really watched too many FA Cup games that are outside of kind of the top echelons.
You guys are of the era, aren't you, where the FA Cup was probably not the biggest thing in the world.
If you're going off that as well, like I remember, Leeds beating Manchester United at Old Trafford when they were League One. Jermaine Beckford's goal as well. That's one that gets brought. I mean, Beckford still lives off that, really, doesn't he? If we're honest.
And Luciano Becchio up front. That was a hell of a team. That.
I think for me, so far, the biggest, I suppose the earliest memory and one of my favourite memories in terms of being a Jules fan for the FA Cup was probably a few seasons ago before COVID hit, was Sunderland at Priestfield. We got through the full 90 minutes and 0-0, reach extra time, very dying seconds of the last half of extra time, and Conor Ogilvie jumps in with a header and makes it 1-0. Gills go through and then face West Ham United at home in the third round that season. It was a mental atmosphere that night, and obviously then following to the West Ham game. But yeah, for me, that was one of my favourite experiences, certainly of the FA Cup, because it just makes you realise that actually all it takes is just that one tiny moment in a cup, and if you take it, then for us, we got to then face a big giant of the Premier League, and it was well worth that little addition.
What about you, Chris? Oldham's FA Cup history is pretty good, actually.
Yeah, we've been had some good giant killings over the year. I mean, I have vague memories of people talking about us beating Manchester City in 2005, but I wasn't there. But Everton 2008.
It's not right that you only have vague memories of 2005. To me, that feels so wrong. Oh dear.
I would have been 8 then. It was 2008 that's probably my firm memory. That's definitely FA Cup. We went to Goodison Park in the third round, and Gary McDonald scored a 30-yard looping shot over the goalkeeper, and we won the game 1-0. It's actually set up by Kelvin Lomax, who is Kieran Trippier actually named as his idol, because I think they're cousins or somehow related. But half our squad was injured for that match, and the match was actually delayed by 30 minutes because the chippy next to Goodison Park set on fire.
Oh, right. I thought you were going to say they ran out of chips.
The story at the time, though, was that John Sheridan promised the team a chippy on him if they won the match.
So he burned it down.
And that thing. But I remember we had a 90-second minute Yakubu one-on-one with Mark Crossley in net for us, and it rattled off the post, and I think that post is still rattling today. It was a hell of a shot. But yeah, that's probably my earliest firm FA Cup memory.
Mine would be
I feel
Tottenham.
like there needs to be a special...
Go ahead, mate.
Go on. Oh, okay. No, I was going to say, I feel like there needs to be a special shout-out for Wigan as well back in 2013 when they beat Manchester City at that point. Obviously now find themselves in League One now, but what a game that was at that
Portsmouth
point.
Won the FA Cup,
of course.
Well.
Yeah, I remember that, because I seem to remember them putting Portsmouth's name on the trophy about a minute before the end of the match. And,
that's not a good idea, really, is it?
No, I thought it was very brave.
What a gamble.
They're playing Cardiff, though, to be fair, so...
They were.
It's probably not that brave. Mine would probably be Tottenham taking on Oxford in 1991. Yes, I know.
You're showing your age.
I wasn't even born.
Well, I mean...
No, James was the only one that was born then.
Right, I'm ending this pod now. It's not good for my mental health. No, but what I remember more about, not so much because my dad was the Oxford fan then, as I was about 6 years old, so I hadn't really cemented my support for the club at that point. But I remember Gascoigne had a great game, as did Lineker, and Martin Foyles, who Port Vale fans will know very well, he scored a brace for us in that game, but I think we lost 4-2 if I remember rightly. But yeah, I think I've said before, I always used to think whenever anyone mentioned United, they were talking about Oxford, because my dad basically tricked me into thinking they were massive. And so I thought this was just the standard, Oxford playing Tottenham week in, week out. Little did I know. Right, next question comes from Liam Green. In fact, Liam's been a bit
There were
cheeky
so
here and
many
asked about.
questions here.
Yeah, well, we're not going to do all of them. But
I thought some of the, asking me to remember various things about the first round of the FA Cup over the year.
Forget
were
the
a bit
first round.
ambitious.
I can't decipher between rounds. It just becomes a blur. But actually, favourite FA Cup shock is a good one. So let's start with you on this one, Chris. Favourite FA Cup shock.
Oh, it's got to be January 2013, Oldham 3, Liverpool 2 for me.
That's a great shout. I remember that one.
I was a ball boy for that match, and that was just.
There's a picture of you cheering when Smith scores, isn't there? In that game?
There is, yeah. I think it's the second goal, and it's him tapping the ball in, and I was the ball boy behind that net in the first half.
Yeah, just
so you can see me with my sort of arm, because I remember that happening because I think it was Lee Croft had got the ball, and he turned and taken the limpest of shots that it looked like the goalkeeper had just taken. So I just turned on to my phone to text my mum saying, "Oh, it's half time." And then I just hear the Chaddy end start to go, "Whoa!" And I pop my head up, and it's Matt Smith tapping in this easiest of finish. And I'm going, how is this happening? How are we 2-1 up?
Against Liverpool, for no less. Yeah.
Again, and it was it was actually the first match that Luis Suarez captained for Liverpool. It was a pretty strong one, and they had Gerrard and Carragher on the bench. And there's a superb image somewhere of them looking miserable with their arms folded.
What about you, Ed? Your favourite FA Cup shock?
There's so many, aren't there? But one that comes to mind, because I see it talked about every now and then, Chelsea 2, Bradford 4.
Got to be that. Yeah,
That's
Bridge. On my list. What a game.
Comeback that was.
Bradford
John Stead having an amazing whole competition time. I think he scored in every round he played in. Fantastic.
Philippe Moraes was impressive in that one, wasn't he?
That's probably the last time he was impressive. Yeah.
And I think it was Mourinho's Chelsea at the time, and they were top of the league and on track of maybe a quadruple they were talking about, and Bradford rock up as a League One side and just play them off the park.
The way
it
that day.
And that was another one. Was a strong Chelsea squad, wasn't it?
Yeah,
it was a good Chelsea team.
Yeah, great performance that one. What about you, David? Any stand out for you? FA Cup shot?
Well, a bit before my time, but I do remember a lot of people talk about the Wrexham Arsenal game when Wrexham beat Arsenal, who had obviously won the league that previous season. I think it was back in the 90s, like 92, and Wrexham beat them in the FA Cup.
Mickey Thomas, wasn't it? Didn't they go on about?
I don't know. I literally just know that. Yeah, I just know that I've heard very much of that game that as being one of the biggest kind of. It's one of those that tends to come up as one of the biggest shocks.
I would go
in FA Cup history.
I would go with Shrewsbury 2, Everton 1. Nigel Jemison scoring a brace, ex-Oxford player. Someone everyone loves to hate. One of the most arrogant and annoying footballers. But no doubt he had talent, and obviously the scorer of Notts Forest.
Who was the Shrewsbury manager at that point?
Turner, might have been Turner.
Because it was Moyes at Everton, wasn't it? This was Moyes at Everton.
No, it was not. It was Radcliffe.
Was it not?
I think it was Radcliffe. It was a guy who basically didn't last. No, actually, no. Maybe it's Radcliffe. It was an ex-Everton guy at Shrewsbury, so it might have been Radcliffe. Yes, you might be right.
Oh, 2003.
Yeah, Moyes.
It's Kevin Radcliffe in charge of Shrewsbury.
Yeah, and that's where I'm getting confused. Yeah, because Radcliffe didn't he play? He played for Everton, didn't he?
He was Everton's most successful captain at the time. I'm reading a BBC article from 2003, and it's the design of the websites back then. Jesus
Terrible.
Christ,
yeah. I miss it.
Gemmo scored it. Gemmo scored a brace, saw a free kick. It was absolutely superb. I think from a personal note, when Oxford beat Leeds in 93-94, after extra time, we were 2-0 up, I think, and Leeds came back with a late goal, and then Jim Magilton scored the most sumptuous little chip you'll ever see. And remember, pitches back then were terrible. This is at Ellen Road. And Leeds at the time, I think they won the league in 92 or something. So they were a big, big club, and Oxford were, by this stage, struggling financially in what is now the Championship. And yeah, Jim Magilton scored this goal. And I think
can we give a shout out to Sutton beating Coventry, by the way?
Yeah. And also, what about, I still, one of my favourite ones is still Fulham 1, Oldham 2, just because Pete Wild and that.
Pete Wild celebration was amazing.
I've got that in for my favourite recent FA Cup match, so I didn't think I could go for that. I mean, that 2013 season, it sort of gets overshadowed by beating Liverpool, but we also beat Nottingham Forest in the round before and took Everton to a replay in the 5th round, which got us into the draw for the quarter-final, which was surreal.
Indeed. And another one for me on a personal note was Oxford beating Swindon in 2002, live on BBC. Jefferson Louis scored the most dodgy goal. It was a flick of a header, and Basham went to add his touch to it, missed it completely, and the keeper just let it roll in. And then in the change room, they had this camera, right? And this is proper live TV at the time. Camera in the changing room when the draw came out and Oxford got Arsenal away. And Jefferson Louis was so excited he let his towel drop live on TV.
Oh no!
Yeah, baring his backside to the world, jumping around for joy.
Well, at least it was the backside.
Yes, indeed. Yeah.
Could have been worse.
Jefferson Louis, the same player who, when I watched Atlanta Sports, he'd been playing.
Atlanta Sports, I
Yeah.
forgot about that.
He was playing for Crawley or something. They interviewed him live on TV, and he dropped the F-bomb in there, forgetting
Told us
completely
that
that it was
story
live.
as well, yeah.
Quite funny. But yes, there's been quite a few great FA Cup games. Liam's also asked thoughts on Crawley Town at the moment. I'm a bit worried about Crawley Town at the moment.
I mean, I just wrote meh on my notes.
Oh,
I found them very patchy, Crawley.
Their
I seem to remember
XG from open
they had a strong run of form earlier on, and they're in a bad run of form, and they'll probably go back to having a strong one again.
They still rely too much
Can't
on Glenn
think too much
Morris,
of them.
personally. I think. I mean, if I know they've got injuries, and so it's very hard to judge this squad without the likes of Tunnicliffe in there, Matthews in there. You know, I don't know what their best team looks like at the moment, but
I don't either.
I think there's lots of teams worse than them below them. I think Scunthorpe, Carlisle, Oldham, and Stevenage are all worse than them.
Former Kwesi Appiah is good at the minute. I'll give them that.
yeah, and I think Nichols will still be a key player. He missed like a load of the start of the season, so it's very difficult to get up to speed when you've missed pre-season and all this. So pretty difficult times for them. But I don't like their XGA. It's very bad. So they give up so many good scoring chances, and they need to nip that in the bud, because that will really bite them as the season goes on. Ryan Whelan has asked best run clubs in the division. Actually, Ryan, I've found there's quite a few. There are quite a few.
Yeah, there are.
Oldham is not on the list, but
Oh, that's disgraceful.
but actually, best run clubs, right? So in the context of League 1 and 2, I've got Lincoln, Salop, Port Vale now with the new owners. Exeter have always been well run. Walsall, a really well run club, don't get enough credit because they've always, I think, only spent about 60% of their income on wages, so they've always been pretty sustainable in that respect. Sutton seemed like a really nice community club. Plymouth, who I was watching something about their finances on YouTube the other day. I didn't quite finish it, but they seem really well run. Rotherham, of course, as we know, their chairman does never allow them to spend beyond their means, hence why they haven't necessarily cemented a championship place. But you know, I'll forgive them for the fact that they don't put their club at risk. Accrington and Morecambe as well seem really well run.
I've got Forest Green in there as well.
Forest Green are well run, but if I always worry if Dale Vince leaves, like they're not. Are they sustainable? Do you think in terms of are they spending more on wages than they can?
Well, they
afford?
aim to be sustainable, don't they? That's the whole gimmick.
Well, but he could, environmentally sustainable, I guess. But yeah,
Did you mention Burton in that, by the way, James? Because
Burton's on my list. Yeah, did I not mention
Okay,
Burton's
yeah,
on it? Yeah,
certainly want them.
very very well run club. I do worry, like again, Burton don't get the crowds though, do they? They're like one of the lowest.
No,
clubs.
we're one of those clubs where you need success for the crowds to come, if we're truthful. There's a contingent, but if you want to fully fill it, they've got to start
You've
pushing
got
to the
a
championship.
geographical quandary because there's quite a lot of good clubs near
There
you.
is a lot of competition around that area, certainly.
Yeah,
I do like your stadium though.
I've not been yet.
It's very practical, yeah.
Not one
Yeah,
I
I like it. It's good. It's mostly standing, isn't it? So I always.
Yeah,
I
that'll
always
need
have
to
soft
change at
spots
some
for
point.
terraces.
Yeah, so there's quite a few well-run clubs, to be fair. And Lincoln yesterday, shout out to them for giving their FA Cup profits to Bowes and Pitsea, who I thought did really well to only lose 1-0. Really,
Yeah,
really good.
credit to them.
Good gesture from Lincoln. It deserves a lot of credit because you know they're not flush with cash. Let's not pretend this is a team that gets like 90 million a season from a TV deal. This is Lincoln City in League One. So to do that, you know, is really a credit to them and a credit to their fans who I think are, you know, lucky to support the club that they currently have at the moment. Right, another question. Let's have a look. Are there any teams near the top of either league that you feel will fall away as the season goes on? Funnily enough, I looked at the data to try and support me on this, and in League 2, there's not a lot to worry about for the teams at the top. Like
I don't think there is in League One either, really.
I thought
I'm struggling to pick one for
I
this.
thought it was a little bit more open in League 2. So looking at the point tellers, I've just sort of gone for Leyton Orient and Harrogate. I can see not completely dropping out of the playoff race, but if I was to pick two that I think
they don't
might
have a big
not
squad,
be...
Harrogate, so if they get any sort of injury problems.
Exactly. In League 1, I found it really tough, and I've basically just written, if they carry on at this rate, Sunderland.
Yeah, only because their XGA from open play is awful. Like, it's
I would
terrible.
potentially add Swindon Town to League Two. I think you lose Tyree Simpson for whatever reason. There's no real alternative in that forward position, so that might affect them.
Are they They were one of the clubs that had this monitored loan agreement under Lee Powell's price.
I believe so.
I don't know if they've paid it back yet. I'm not sure. But
Yeah.
that might affect their recruitment sort of drive.
You'd hope that's one of the first things a new owner would do.
I think
Just pay
Exeter
that.
need to tighten up a bit as well, looking at their XGA from open play. That they worry me slightly, but they've got a very strong squad, and frankly, they've had quite a large injury problem continuously throughout the season, but their squad's been able to absorb that quite well. But yeah, Sunderland are the one I worry about. I mean, they've lost, is it 3 or 4 in a row now in all competitions?
Yeah, and
funny enough, the last pod
It's
that we
what Lee
recorded-
Johnson does, though, doesn't he?
it's Lee Johnson's horrible time of the year where he always drops off with clubs. But I mean, and this sort of links to one of the other questions, I can't remember who by, which was talking about clubs that need to find their form.
That's Jonathan.
And Sunderland are very much one of them, because they've got a good squad. They have on paper a very good manager, new owner, good setup. It should all be in their favour to absolutely run away with it this year.
At the other end of the table, Morecambe need to find some form as well.
Yeah, I'm
their
worried about
defensive
that.
record
I mean,
is
we
really
talked
worrying me
about it
now.
last week, didn't we? That their shots on target to goals ratio is like 50%, or it was 50%. It's not sustainable, though, is the point I made last week. And if their other, the other data looking at the team goes a bit sour, like it appears it will, they will fall into that bottom 4 sooner rather than later, because other sides are, like Fleetwood, you feel have got something about them, especially attacking wise. Shrewsbury picked up a couple of good home wins more recently. So, I mean, yeah, I do worry about Morecambe. In fact, let's go on to Jonathan's question about 2 teams that need to find form in each division. I mean, in League 2, I've looked at... I mean, you could argue...
So many.
Anyone at the bottom.
Stevenage
And Carlisle,
screams out to me.
I've gone Oldham and Carlisle, but you could easily go Scunthorpe, Mansfield, Salford.
I don't... to be honest, I think, like we say each week, Scunthorpe, there's nothing in that squad. It doesn't matter.
That's why I didn't write Scunthorpe down, because I think not to write them off too early, but I think they're dangerously close to being dead and buried.
I'd probably say Salford and Colchester, though, because I think even with the squad that Colchester have got, they should be, personally, I think they should be in a better position than they are now in 17th.
They've had a tough summer, though, haven't they?
They have, but I'm very, very worried about Colchester, because they've got the worst XG from open play in League 2, and the worst XG from open play in League 2. So they create very few good scoring chances, and they've got the 3rd worst XG against. They look, data-wise, they look like a team in absolute all sorts of trouble. Yet Alan Judge coming back might help that. He's been out for ages with a calf issue. But
this is the thing with League 2. We say you can be terrible in this league and get away with it, because there's only 2 relegation spots.
Yeah.
So there's a number of bad teams down this league, to be honest, that are going to survive the season.
But back to Jonathan's
you
question,
just have to not be worse than the other 2.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh,
Back
you
to
come out with
Jonathan's
some crackers, don't you, Dave?
Well,
It's
the
great.
obvious is my forte, my friend.
Yeah, great. It's great. We need someone to state the obvious amongst our rambling network of
Michael Owen in the group.
League 2, though. So yeah, Carlisle I think need to really find some sort of form, because I still think their squad's got enough in it to do well. And Stevenage under Alex Ravel, good result in the FA Cup yesterday away at MK, but yeah, worried about them. In League 1, Crewe are one they've got to find form quickly.
Well,
or
that's
they
the
will
obvious
be.
one, yeah, Crewe, to be fair.
I didn't
And
put Crewe in
Bolton.
just
I've got Bolton. A bit worried about Bolton. Not that they'll go down, but this is they've
16th Bolton, I didn't realise that.
and Portsmouth.
well, look at their form as well. Look at Bolton's form. It's no wins in 5 or 6 now, and
Hasn't it coincided with him calling them the best? It has, hasn't it? It's coincided with him calling them the best team in the league.
They went on horrible form last year after he said this.
no, they went on good form after he said this last.
Well,
week.
if you remember, there's a couple of weeks where they were crap, and then they turned it around.
Oh yeah, well after January when they signed some really good players.
But they signed it, they signed half of League 1. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Okay, so anyone want to advance me on Crewe and Bolton in League 1?
Portsmouth
Yeah, I agree.
and
Depending on
Sunderland, as I've said already. But Portsmouth, I mean, they should not be in 14th.
Gillingham, David?
Yeah, I mean, the problem with us is that we've got a massive injury crisis, and like as it is, even getting through to January is going to be a struggle. I think we've probably got 14 fit players, and that includes 2 goalkeepers at this point. So, but this is, let's be honest, this is the issue when you go through the embargo stuff. This is also the issue when the people you recruit are historically injury prone. So it was always going to be a challenge with the set of players that we brought in, on the basis that we knew that quite a few of them had previous injuries as well. And then obviously you've got some that are loans as well. Like Dan Phillips has been out for a very long time.
God, that's a name I even forgot you had.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean. Like, a lot of Gills fans have forgotten too. Like, he's been out for a very long time, and then just more and more players that are getting injured for some reason beyond my understanding. We have requested that Charlie Kelman goes back to QPR as well.
I assume that's to free up a squad space, because he's probably not cutting it.
I forgot Charlie Kelman was there.
And you're limited to 21 established first team players or something.
Something like that. But the problem is that half of those, or a good amount of those, are still academy prospects or coming in. You know, Bailey Ackhurst and Gerald Sitole. These are players that are still just coming through the academy this year.
The rule that playing your academy player makes him an established first teamer is absolute rubbish. That rule
it's ridiculous, isn't it? It is absolutely ridiculous, because it means, especially for teams in our kind of position, though, it means that, you know, you bring in academy players, even if you need to substitute them for, say, a match or so, but then you still have to be able to then register them in order to make sure that they are eligible for the whole season.
If you start them, then
exactly.
they go onto the list.
Yeah. Which is why none of those players have started unless it's in a cup competition. They always come on as substitutions.
And it's totally against the standard protocol where under 20s aren't classed as a
it's under 21s, isn't it? Under 21s aren't classed as people that need to be registered for the squad for the whole of the season, which is beyond me, that you then have to register them if they start a game.
Yeah.
Stupid. Lee Clifton, I like this question. Do you think the FA Cup winner should qualify for the Champions League instead of the team that finishes fourth in the Premier League? Premier League clubs would take the FA Cup a lot more seriously and name stronger squads with a huge prize on offer for winning the FA Cup. I've been harking on about this for ages. I think the FA Cup, absolutely, given its history of being the best competition ever to exist, definitely should have a fourth Champions League spot.
I think
I disagree with this, but I only disagree. So I only disagree with this because I feel like it shouldn't be the Champions League. I feel like it should be the Europa League or one of the other competitions. And the only reason I simply say that is because if you get a lower league side that enters a competition like that, fair enough if they win the FA Cup. Like,
that would make
massive,
it great, though, wouldn't it?
But
it would
an
be ridiculous, but there would be no level of competition for them, would they? They'd be completely wiped out of the park. Like, yes, of course, they get financial benefits.
And Bangor City and stuff like that play in the early rounds of the Champions League anyway. I mean,
First League winners, they do, yeah.
An FA Cup winner is more of a champion than fourth in the Premier League, and I will
it's
die
more
on
of an
this hill.
achievement, isn't it? Winning a cup, an actual tangible bit of silverware, is much more of an achievement than finishing fourth in a tin pot league like the Premiership.
If you're not a champion, you should not play in the Champions League or the Champions League.
Yeah, well, that doesn't happen anymore, Chris. We don't get that.
Obviously things have changed massively from that, but I would agree that there needs to be something more lucrative to go alongside the FA Cup. I just personally don't think it should be the Champions League. I would say
why did they ever get rid of the Cup Winners' Cup?
Because Premier League teams are complaining that they're playing too many games.
We've got too many matches.
Oh, you poor things with your 60-man squads. Poor sods.
Yeah, exactly.
But
bring back the Anglo-Italian Cup, man.
I'm sure I remember Jurgen Klopp complaining about fixture schedules once, and Oxford had played more games than them that season. I seem to remember that a couple of years back.
Yeah, we played like 60-something matches or something across the campaign. I mean,
Jurgen Klopp's the worst of this one, isn't he? I tend to have very high regard for him, but he complains a lot about fixtures.
There is a lot of complaints from Klopp about it, for sure.
Yeah, whinge. I mean, to be honest, yeah, I see what you're saying, David, but I still think the FA Cup, because if you look at the people that win it, it's very rarely won by a lower league side, and it would have been great to see like Wigan and Portsmouth in the Champions League. And I just think that this competition with its history deserves to have such a lucrative prize at the end of it.
I think a Championship club could hold their weight as much as like the smaller Premier League clubs like Manchester United or something.
Yeah, like those clubs that are just awful and drifting into oblivion, even though.
Yeah.
I mean, imagine buying Jadon Sancho and being rubbish. Oh dear.
I suppose if there, if you were talking a championship club that was around the echelons of the Europa League, I could get behind that, just because I think the level of some of the clubs in the Europa League would be better in terms of that. Do you know what I mean? In terms of balancing it.
Paint trophy, though, isn't it? The Europa League.
Well, actually, I'd probably say the new Conference League is probably that. That's basically the Papa John's trophy.
I forgot that existed, actually.
Yeah, it's the Pizza Cup, isn't it? It's the Pizza Cup of Europe, is the Conference League.
What the hell?
It is to the highest ranked nations, not to the lower ranked sides, I would say.
I've never even heard of it.
Well, that's true, but then I think that's exactly why. In that sense, even if you offer potential European football to any lower league side or to anyone that, Premier League clubs, let's be honest, they're not going to care, apart from maybe the people in the lower half of the Premier League, but the vast majority of them are not really going to care about a spot in some of those lower competitions. But that's why I'm saying incentivise it with that, because you incentivise it with the Champions League. Sure, you're going to have these Premier League clubs.
Everyone's going to want to win it because of the money that you get for just being in the Champions League.
Well, that's true. That's true. I suppose in that sense,
and
it
let's
would
be honest,
incentivise
the top four teams win it, more often than not anyway, the FA Cup, don't they? If you look at the history of it, the big teams more often than not win it anyway. Yeah. It just means that a lot more of them would take it massively seriously. I mean, I know it's not going to happen anyways.
It's just a fantasy, this, isn't it?
But I'd argue, would they take it more seriously though? Because if you're saying for those top four, but those top four clubs.
Well, look at Manchester United. If they're not going to finish in the top four, so basically their only chance of getting Champions League football and the lucrative financial advantages that brings is to win the FA Cup, and that's that's not beyond them unless they get one of the other top four teams in, say, a semi-final or something. I mean, you could potentially, as a big club, have a fairly easy path to the final, and you're not going to play a weak team just in case you miss out on a chance of winning the Champions League. I mean, you've got Arsenal, a mid-table Premier League team.
Well, that's true. Yeah.
It's a difficult one. It's never going to happen. But
it's an interesting debate, though, isn't it? To think of what it could be like. Yeah.
Why is fourth place a Champions League spot? Why?
Because UEFA say it is.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's all UEFA. They dictate what
UEFA know nothing.
But it would be the same argument as to why third place would be or second place if you're,
They shouldn't be in my world. But
no, when they first brought this trophy in, what they really should probably do, going massively off topic, is probably open this up to some of the lower leagues that they give qualification spots to for the earlier rounds, and just say, you've won your respective league, you should be in this competition.
I don't think it should be weighted in the way it is. I think it will be far fairer to actually just say that every
champion of their particular league should be able to.
Every qualifying country should be able to put forward, say, if you want to have a qualifying round as well, they could put forward the winner of their top flight and perhaps the winner of their top domestic trophy. So in England's case, that would be the winner of the Premier League and the winner of the FA Cup. Yeah. And so they're putting forward two genuine champions into Europe, and that should be the same for every country, be it...
Yeah, but this is... The UEFA want commercialisation. They want as many big teams as they can in there now. That's why they've created a third competition to get people in. It's just it's gone too far the other way, to be honest, for it to change now. I hate to say it.
It's the whole point of the European Conference League as well, because then if you think about it then, obviously Tottenham never would have got into the Europa League, and it means it's another Premier League or another bigger team, like Roma, for example, are in the Conference League as well. So these are teams that potentially should be Champions League and Europa League caliber that are still getting European football because they've created a new competition.
I'm bored of European conversation. Can we get on with the lower leagues, because it's much more fun?
Well, let's move on to something far more serious.
Yes.
Alex Jones asks, would you rather fight 100 chicken-sized Joey Bartons or one Joey Barton-sized chicken? Now, I've been having nightmares about seeing 100 chicken-sized Joey Bartons sort of charging towards me, but... this is quite a difficult debate, actually. I mean, for me, the simple answer is I'd rather fight one Joey Barton-sized chicken, because although it's the size of Joey Barton, it's still a chicken. Whereas...
You're wrong.
No, I agree with James.
No, so I've done the maths on this.
Here we go. What do you mean the maths on this?
Feel free, people listening, to press that little thing that says skip 15 seconds.
So the average height of a chicken is 38 centimetres with an 8 centimetre foot, which has spiky claws on the end. Joey Barton is 175 centimetres tall.
Yeah.
So if I was to scale up the size of a chicken
he thinks he's a lot taller, I think.
if I was to scale up the size of a chicken foot to a Joey Barton sized chicken, it would be a 36.8 centimetre long chicken foot with claws on the end.
Okay.
That's a chicken sized claw.
Yes. But, Chris, my point is this, right?
It's still a chicken.
If you take on just one Joe Barton-sized chicken, you're dealing with just one. You can put all your focus onto them. If you're having to deal with 100 different things that can come at you from all different angles, it's going to be a lot harder.
Yeah, but they're also...
It's Joey Barton running around.
No, look. You watch David Attenborough documentaries, right, where you get like a zebra being chased by a lion, and you think, can the zebra outrun them? And you might think there's a chance because it's just one of them. A second lion then appears on the screen. You think, oh, he's had it. Because there's more than one of them. It's a lot harder to deal with multiple than it is a single one.
Do you know a family of otters can scare off a crocodile because there's lots of them?
Yeah, but this is Joey Barton. Joey Barton thinks he's harder than he is. So he'd just be running around.
If you had 100
there'd be 100 of him.
Imagine 100 climbing on you and
they'd
then
just be moulded
one
off.
of them.
But all he'd do would be screaming at you, telling him his team's the best team in the league and they're going to win promotion. There would be nothing else
You've basically got a velociraptor running at you.
Yeah, but you just throw some corn on the floor.
I'd rather that than 100 little grabbing Joe Barton.
Just throw some chocolate coins around and he'll be so fascinated by the colour of that he won't bother you at all.
I think if this is... It'll be all riled up by this point, though. I think
I'm getting riled up talking about this.
He'd be pecking and clawing at you. I think the Joey Barton-sized chicken is a far scarier prospect.
It's harder to deal with, I agree, but you've got one of them. You can put all your focus on that. If you've got to go 100 chickens that are Joe Barton, are chicken size, you've got to deal with 100.
You just put your headphones. You just put your headphones on and ignore him because he feeds on attention. If he's not got the attention, he'll pass out.
I feel like we need to tweet this out and just let our listeners
I stand by the single option. I'll always pick the single option in this question.
Just simply need to tweet out a poll and by next week figure out what our listeners reckon would be the best option out of the two. Because I don't think
it's a question to really. This goes through the ages. This one.
This is a question for the ages. I think.
Yeah, it is. It's a difficult one, but I still maintain that I just drop some corn on the floor and the chicken would be done with. You can't distract Joe Barton that easily.
You can't. You just ignore him.
Well, yeah.
Just
following him, not ignoring him.
I've been ignoring him for about 20 years, and he's still on my screen every week. It's quite difficult.
If he's not got any attention, he'll wander off and go and try and headbutt someone else.
Well, yeah, but then you're just passing the problem on to another innocent.
That's someone else's problem.
Oh, Chris, that's the modern. I can tell you weren't born in my era. So pass the buck on to someone else. No. No, I'm sure rounding up 100 chicken-sized Joey Bartons would be
I'm not trying to save humanity from 100 chicken-sized Joey Bartons.
Yeah, but imagine like the benefit for poverty-stricken families if you manage to roast just that one Joey Barton-sized chicken.
Are you making this a class issue, James?
No, I'm just saying that there's a lot of meat on a Joey Barton-sized chicken. You could be like, it could be good. Anyway, I think we've answered that question, and Chris is wrong, so we'll move on.
Chris is wrong.
Yeah, Chris is wrong. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely wrong. But we'll get some proper thoughts on this one.
We need to get the experts on.
Andy Archer makes a good point. He says, "Do you think an FA Cup run will damage Cambridge United's promotion charge, or can they compete on both fronts?" I think they'll do fine on both fronts, to be honest.
I have a rule.
Did you just say Cambridge United's promotion charge?
Yeah,
I'm He's a positive thinker.
I like it.
I did see this question on Twitter, and I have to say, I think this gentleman is incredibly positive. I'm not sure that's they might be on a okay run right now, but I don't think promotion is something that I don't think any of us really see Cambridge being up there at the end of the season.
He's tongue in cheek, I'm sure. I think he'd be like the rest of us. If they stayed in League One, that'd be a great achievement.
I have a rule of thumb for this. If a team's doing well, an FA Cup run is a distraction and they tend to drop off. If a team's doing poorly, it's the distraction they need and something enough to give them a bit of confidence, and it is quite often enough to keep.
Can't some teams do both? When Lincoln made the quarterfinals, weren't they top of the National League?
They were. So some clubs can, but I think as a rule of thumb, that tends to hold weight.
Yeah, I agree. Will McAllister makes a good point here. He said, "Do you think that there will be any relegation contenders in League Two not managed by a Keith?
I love this.
Or is it just a three-way Keith off for one?
I've got to watch out for Alex Ravel at the minute, to be honest.
Well, actually, I've tapped up some of my inside sources at Carlisle, right? And apparently, they did exclude people from applying for the manager's job who weren't called Keith. So,
Keith Lart's loving it.
Well, yes, I mean, apparently Nuno Espirito Santo turned up for the interview and was turned away because they found out that he wasn't called Keith. He said, "But I've got promotion."
Oh, Joes, don't do what you're about to do.
Premier League. No, he said, "No, sorry, your name's not Keith, mate." And plus, and then same at Scunthorpe.
They can have Keith Earl back if they want.
He's doing a great job.
I don't think of any other Keiths in management. Let me think.
Are you googling Keiths in
Yes, I'm
management?
googling Keiths managers.
You can just hit your keyboard. Go.
Yeah,
Keith
no, so
Burke,
yeah,
sure.
I think there is. Let's be honest. I mean, if John Yems doesn't stop the rot at Crawley, they could be pulled into it. I think Hayden, like I said, Hayden Mowes is definitely in a relegation battle with Colchester unless their data improves. And Alex Ravel, we talked about it actually on the greatest podcast we ever recorded last week, which will never be heard by anyone. And we did say, how long's he got? I mean, do you think he can turn it around, Ed? Alex Ravel, it's been a poor run, hasn't it?
I don't know, to be honest. It just feels like it's heading one way at the moment for Stevenage.
It's not looking great. How did your Keith Google come up? Keith.
I found a guy called Keith Birkinshaw, who is admittedly 86, so I don't think he's going to be back in the mix. He hasn't done anything since 2007, so
it's just
there
a weird
doesn't seem to be that many
quirk,
Keiths in management.
They're all at the bottom of League Two at the moment. Do you think? Let's talk about managers then. While we've got the point on a serious note, Keith Hill to Scunthorpe. I mean, no surprise Neil Cox went because they were on a terrible run. Do you think he'll do well?
I kind of like it. I know there's Bolton and Tranmere fans who are insisting it's going to fail, but it's different expectations here than that. I kind of like bits about it. It's going to be a massive task for sure with Scunthorpe's squad, but
Is he not a bit done now, Keith Hill?
Well, we'll find out. I think
I
he's.
kind of like it a bit.
It's like John Sheridan, though. If he's at Rochdale, he'll do all right. John Sheridan at Oldham, but anywhere else, he just seems to be crap.
Well, he wasn't that bad at Tranmere. It ended badly, but he.
Oh, to be fair, it was the funniest managerial appointment.
Funniest managerial appointment, yes, definitely was, and strangest exit almost, really, getting them to the playoffs and then being fired. Hartlepool, Dave Challoner, off to Stockport, just despite in September signing a new 3-year deal with Paulus.
County.
It's another example of the money wishing around in the National League being able to just exploit the weaknesses of League Two clubs, isn't it? I mean,
this is what happens. Like, and go back a few years, if I'd heard of a lower league player or manager being linked to a non-league club, I wouldn't have batted an eyelid at it. Now you have to take it seriously.
Yeah.
It's a
strange concept, though, isn't it? Because you always assume the money, or you always assume that people are going to go up the pyramid in terms of leaving a club. It's very rare.
Paul Mullin,
right, but it's I get that, but it's very rare that you have that we've. Well, as you say, Chris, we've never really needed to worry about anything lower. Like,
does anyone
got Wrexham
think
in the
this
National
league's
League
become
now.
inverted?
I was saying this the other week.
The top of the National League is now much stronger than most of the bottom of League Two.
Yeah, definitely.
I think so. Definitely. I think it's stronger. I think a lot of the teams fighting at the top of the National League would be fighting at the top of League Two.
Yeah.
But they don't. The thing is they also don't have the same financial constraints at that level.
No,
that's the difference as well. I don't think there are any financial constraints at that level, or they're not
very
as
few,
much as
very
right,
few.
but not as much as then when you get into the EFL. So the other struggle is if these teams do get the promotion that they're hoping for, how do they cope with spending the amount of money they're spending in the National League to then being on the budgeted system that they have to then be in when they fall into the EFL, which is another very interesting point as to, how do they then manage
They must have an amnesty, mustn't they? Because they can't, the EFL won't probably expect them to suddenly get their finances straight away in line with the regulations when they come up. Because
I think the finances, they have to, don't they?
Well, that depends really how much they're spending, though, doesn't it? Because if there's no restraint or very little restraints, that's a big change when if you're then for a period of say 3 or 4 months of a season, or even the first 3 months of a season, if you're if you're spending far more than any other club at a level like League Two, then
Salford do it every year.
That's true.
Stockport's setup has also been like a arc back to Football League football. They've gone from being a semi-pro club a couple of years ago to being, I can't remember if they're fully professional or sort of like 80% professional now. But I would expect that their finances would probably translate into League Two fairly comfortably with the way that they're set up.
I mean, you look at all the players that are being poached. Like you had Scott Quigley from Barrow. He's now at Stockport, isn't he?
Sarcevic the other week.
Yeah, my goodness.
Mullin, Tozer, Hayden,
yeah.
Madden.
They're all going to just a couple of teams. Let's be honest.
And those teams aren't top. If you looked at the table, you've got Bournemouth up there, Grimsby's up there, Bromley, Halifax, Solihull Moors.
Pretty far down. Yeah.
Money doesn't buy you anything except an illusion of success. Success comes from somewhere far deeper than that, as we saw even when Macclesfield got promoted with that.
In fairness, I still expect that. I think Stockport. I can never remember where the playoffs started in the National League, but they're looking. Seventh. It starts at 7th, doesn't it? Yeah, it's a quarter final. So they're within 5 points in a game in hand. Wrexham, 6 points and a few games in hand. Indeed. So. I don't know, it's a weird.
Did you guys see that the Wrexham's owners went to Maidenhead? And I love that idea that Ryan Reynolds and Rob McKinley are just sat away at Maidenhead.
Isn't that the oldest ground, isn't it? Still in constant use?
York Road,
I think so, yeah.
Yes.
Right,
talking of Maidenhead, did you see the FA Cup score yesterday?
Yes, 7-4.
They lost 7-4 to Halifax.
It was 4-3 at half time, wasn't it?
It's madness.
Yeah, that's great.
That's
one
of the things. That's one of the reasons why you love the cup.
Do you remember Crawley
competitions like the FA, though, isn't it?
Yes, Crawley Torquay was brilliant.
6-5, wasn't it, or something ridiculous last year? And that in the FA Cup history is not even anywhere near the first time that's happened. It's happened several times. But final question.
Pete Wild loves the cup.
Yeah, he does. He's got an affinity with it. Final question then. Top 5 managers currently in League 1 and 2. Okay. I've actually not got on here, looking at this, any League 2 managers as it stands.
Well, I went for, just to be fairly even, I went for 2 from League 2, 3 from League 1.
Go on then, read yours first.
Well, in no particular order, I've gone Simon Weaver and Matt Gray in League 2. I just think that the job they're doing with the historically smaller clubs in this league has been exceptional. And in League 1, I've gone for Ryan Lowe, Paul Warne and Gareth Ainsworth.
Indeed, interesting. Ed?
Is it top 5 across both leagues, or was it one in each?
I've done across both leagues.
I need to think about this. I hadn't seen this question till now. Ooh.
Okay, well, Dave, have you got any written down?
I've got 3, and they're all League 1. But I would have said I would agree with Ryan Lowe. The job he's doing at Plymouth is superb. I actually had as well. I had Liam Manning as well, and the job that he's doing at MK since coming in is.
Sample size is too small to say he's one of the best.
Yeah, that's the only reason I kept him off. But I think you've got a fair point.
Fair enough, but I'd also probably put John Coleman in there for a shout.
Yes.
I don't think you can brush past him in terms of the budgets, not just the budget size, but in general the job that he does. Yeah, and the consistency. I think it's phenomenal.
Yeah. So my top 5 were Michael Duff, because I just think he will end up going higher and higher, and he's hamstrung by the fact that Cheltenham are a small team. Let's be honest. I think if he got higher up, he'd do superbly well with them. I've got Mark Bonner sitting in there as a respectable shout out, because he's done a superb job with Cambridge, really has. Though I wouldn't necessarily say he's in the top 5, but he definitely deserves
honourable mention.
Michael Appleton for me is literally, I'd say the best manager in these divisions.
That's the most unsurprising thing you've said all year.
He can do no wrong in your eyes.
No, he can't, exactly. John Coleman's on my list, and Gareth Ainsworth is also on my list. The last slot, I had Mark Bonner as a sort of honourable shout out, but definitely considering what he's achieved, Paul Cook has to go in there. But you've also got Liam Richardson, who, let's be honest, he's doing superbly well with a very good squad. But last year, what he achieved was amazing, considering the constraints and the difficulties that Wigan face. So he deserves a mention. Paul Warne and Ryan Lowe, of course, on my list. I haven't got any in League 2.
I wouldn't say top 5, but there has to be some sort of shout in terms of longevity in the Football League for Steve Evans as well, I would imagine.
I am not putting Steve Evans on the list of top 5.
Hear me out.
Sorry, Dave. I'm not doing it. I'm not
saying in the top 5, and I did preface that with not the top 5. But what I mean is in terms of even over the last couple of seasons, if you look at what he's taken at Gillingham with a not the lowest budget, we were aware of that, but a relatively
the lowest
small...
budget. He reminds us every week that it's the lowest budget.
It's certainly not.
Every week we get reminded about it.
But I think it's a very low budget, and considering what he's managed to do over the last couple of seasons in terms of defying
Common
expectations.
assault on other managers and on referees.
Sure, but yeah, we've
snubbing Oldham at the last second.
But there's been other teams that have, like, historically, sure, he's not been the greatest person, but in terms of his managerial career,
been totally mediocre.
Is there a way on this recording to mute one of the members?
I think
I'm not putting Steve Evans in this list. It's not happening.
Honourable, I don't mean for top 5, and
I'm not putting it on.
You can't have Steve Evans and honourable in the same sentence.
Honourable anything.
See, there is a reason why I didn't mention him in my 5, but I do think there has to be a certain amount of credit given to a manager, regardless of controversy.
David,
what has he done to you? What has he done to you?
It's too early to be drinking.
Right, we are running out of time, so Ed, go on, give us yours now. You've had a moment to think about it.
I'll go across the leagues. John Coleman certainly the one for me with Accrington. Michael Duff. I kind of want to put Mark Bonner in there, even though he's only really been with Cambridge. I'm never underestimating a team that's managed by him again, because he's doing wonderful stuff with Cambridge United at the moment. And according to some people, they're on a promotion charge, so good luck with that. League 2 wise, I kind of want to put Darrell Clark in. For the work he's done with Bristol Rovers and what he's doing with Vale. I mean, I know there's been unsuccessful moments elsewhere, but the way he's got Vale going at the moment and the way he has got teams going before in the past, I think deserves an immense amount of praise for it, certainly.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that.
And then I'll give a mention of Simon Weaver as well for the work he's doing with Harrogate, just continuous progression with them. Wonderful.
It has indeed. Right, so thank you for tuning in. We are all done with your questions. Thank you for those who sent them in. Really appreciate the effort. Ed, Chris, Dave, brilliant again. Dave, go and sober up, please. Stephen, dear me.
I should do it very quickly. I've got a driving lesson in half hour.
Oh, blimey. Yes, you definitely should. Right, and to our dear listeners, thank you for tuning in. Thank you to our patrons and, of course, The Big Step. We'll be back next week with probably a little less silliness, though I can't guarantee that, but certainly a bit more football. So until then, it's goodbye.